All right, everybody, welcome to our last session for the embodied healing for inherited and colonial trauma with the Women's Resource Center. I can't believe that it's already been 16 weeks of a semester, probably a bit more for some of you, and 8 weeks of us gathering in this space together to explore trauma resolution, to explore how colonization shows up within the body, and what we can do to begin healing. And so, for today, to wrap up our time together, I really wanted to create a space where there's a bit more interaction. So, a bit more sharing opportunities will be available today. Um, Reiki definitely will be offered at the end. And the central theme for today is going to be our connection to our ancestors. So, the title is Ancestral Medicine for Resilience and Resolution. And I know that this topic might already be bringing up some stuff for you, and just know that all possibilities, all the full range of emotions and experiences are absolutely welcomed here. And wanted to start us off by offering a few more somatic practices that might be helpful for our time together. And we've kind of been weaving in a few here and there throughout our time together. And so last week, I introduced the one where we place a hand behind our neck as a way to stimulate the vagus nerve, and another hand on the heart as a way to connect to that part of the body. Today, I wanted to offer that sometimes if you're noticing when you're listening with the whole body, right, which is really the invitation that's been weaved in through our time together, is how do we begin to listen with our body, and how do we begin to meet what we notice in the body. And so sometimes whenever we experience stress, most bodies experience stress similarly. So for me, there often is like a tightening in my feet. Either I'm gripping or my feet flex. So instead of having my feet be, let's just say this is neutral, right? My hands, I'm going to stop my share so you can see my screen. Let's say this is neutral. Sometimes if I'm feeling stressed, I might grip my toes or I might flex my feet. So when I listen with my body, I'm scanning my body for these things that indicate that I'm feeling stress. Another indicator is that I might have a tightness in my shoulders, and my pelvic floor will contract or tighten. And so when I notice that these things are happening, I can understand that my body is experiencing some level of stress. And so a way that can help is to notice that that's happening. Perhaps invite in a softening in the shoulders, a softening in the feet, maybe placing all 10 toes, the heel and the arch of your foot, the full bottom surface of your foot on the ground, and noticing gravity. Perhaps you might release the tension in the pelvic floor. And another one that I heard from Jane Clapp is that you can put like a ball, like a therapy ball, a stress ball, underneath your foot and massage the bottoms of your feet so as to bring energy down again. So those are some helpful somatic practices that you can attune to, whether that's throughout our session or in life in general. And the opposite of hyper, right, the stress response, is sometimes we might start to have signs of dissociating or leaving or checking out. And so that's a sign of moving into hypo, where we're possibly freezing at the nervous system level. So what's happening there is actually our connective tissues in our bodies are contracting. They're protecting us, so that there's an armor that happens. There's an energetic closing. Somatically, the fascia is holding and containing in the organs, constricting so that we can protect. And so sometimes what's helpful when we're noticing contraction is to gently sway the body. Small movements of swaying can allow some of the muscles and the tissues to soften and then create a little bit more presence. And these are ways to help regulate your nervous system, right? So just wanted to offer those as ways to create more capacity in our time together. And so, as always, we'll start with our orienting practice. And the invitation is for you to engage with the senses. And for today, I would actually love to invite you to focus on just one sense. So maybe you use your sense of sight, so looking around the space or at a certain object. Maybe you're using your sense of smell, so a cup of tea, or if you have like an essential oil, that might be really great for using the sense of smell. Um, if you're using taste, tea, or something to snack on, sound. You might play some music in the background or listen to the sound of my voice. And the last is touch, right? Did I cover sound, sight, smell, taste, touch? So touch can be an object, right? I love, love, love having a crystal. I don't have one on me right now. I usually have one nearby. I must have brought it somewhere else. But a crystal, whether smooth or not, to have that texture, that tactile experience of having something to hold and touch. And so choose one for today. For me, I'm gonna go with my sense of smell. And so as you're engaging with your sense, and please feel free to choose what feels most doable and right for you. Just take a few moments to just attune to what you're noticing as you engage with this sense. What are some of the qualities that are there to notice? Perhaps in terms of adjectives to describe what you're noticing, like colors, like textures, temperatures. And as you engage with this sense, perhaps beginning to listen again with the whole body, perhaps scanning from head to toe, what might be there to notice? Perhaps any areas where tension might have been held. It's okay. There's no right or wrong way to listen to the body, and the truth is, the body is always listening. It's whether or not we're consciously paying attention to what the body is receiving and responding to. And so noticing how this sense might be creating a little bit more presence, a bit more capacity for here and now. Perhaps making room for anything that might have been pushed aside or overridden, not by intention, but because of necessity. And that maybe this could be a space to invite in just 2% or 5% of what was once hard to hold space for within you. And you can release engaging with the sense and perhaps just attune to here and now. Maybe listening to the sound of my voice and the ambient noises around you. Maybe beginning to draw awareness to the breath, the quality of the breath. And slowly dropping your sense of awareness, your witness consciousness down, 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 down into the soil of the earth. Imagining your roots beginning to grow, growing down, 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 connecting with the root systems of the other plant life, the mycelium network, this ecosystem that sustains life on Earth, that regenerates the life and death cycle, the creation and death cycles. Maybe there are parts that want to be composted, Maybe there's something that wants to be released through the experience of moving it through rather than discarding or overriding, but rather a gentle welcoming so that it may pass through, so that it may move through and be regenerated, be alchemized. And even if that doesn't happen today, if the alchemizing, the regeneration doesn't seem possible, perhaps maybe just the possibility, perhaps imagining that it would be. What might that look like? What might that feel like? What might want to let go? What might want to release? And taking a few more deep breaths here in your root system. Perhaps allowing for the nutrients within the earth to be absorbed, maybe in the form of grounding energy, maybe in the form of a cocoon to rest within as you evolve into a more authentic, full version of yourself. Maybe as a form of a hummingbird exploring, or a busy, hardworking bee collecting honey for the collective. What might be medicine that nature has to offer you? And maybe if nothing comes to mind, perhaps opening the eyes and looking at nature if it's accessible and sensing for what medicine might be here for you. Or maybe imagining yourself in a space in nature where you feel safe and supported, grounded and connected, if any. And for today as well, our root systems contains inviting in the possibility that our root system might contain our ancestral medicine, this root space of literally our roots, where we come from, of the lineages, the traditions, the rituals, the culture that showed us our humanity, that reminded us that we're dimensional, multi-dimensional beings. That when we connect to our ancestors, we remember a way of being, perhaps one that predates colonialism, one that predates systems of oppression, and perhaps one that will offer us the tools, the guidance, the resilience, the love that we need to meet the challenges of today. And perhaps just getting your feet wet with the possibility of that connection, the possibility of medicine that is always available to you. Beautiful. We'll just take a moment now to imagine the collective root system, those that are here and watching the recording, perhaps imagining this wide root system, interconnected, sovereign, unique, whole, yet interdependent, yet inter-sovereign, yet co-creative, with space for all, with room for all. May our time together here today offer us the tools, the guidance, so that we may be vessels, be instruments for the highest expression of love, for the deepest, most resonating truth within our core, within our bodies, within our aliveness, and for the greatest good for all, ourselves and each other included. Maybe a breath or two here to anchor in this feeling. Perhaps noticing how the body might be responding, receiving this prayer, this invitation. Where are you noticing a softening? Where are you noticing receptivity? And where are you noticing perhaps tension, constriction? Can both exist simultaneously? Can there be room for the fullness of your humanity just right here and now? Take 2 to 3 more breaths here. Take your time. This seems and feels like a really juicy place right now. And as you're ready, gently blinking to open the eyes if they're not already there. Orienting once more to a color or an object or a wall, noticing the distance between you and the wall. Finding here and now in the physical space. It's 2:23 p.m. PST, Thursday, December 10th. We're here together in the last session for the series. Wonderful. Great. So, I would love to check in with you all. How are you doing? We'll pause the recording, and all of us here are somewhat familiar with one another. Forgot to start recording. Okay, great. So we're recording back. Great. So yes, we're going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit about ancestral medicine. We'll have a sharing portion where the recording will be paused again. And then we'll move into a practice where we'll actually invite in our ancestors. We'll meet them. And we'll move straight into Reiki after that. So we'll end by 3:25 so that there's 5 minutes for sharing. And if you have to hop off before then, that's absolutely okay too. So a short quote, sort of the essence of today is our reconnection or our connection, right? For some of us, we might already feel really connected to our ancestors. For some of us, it's completely new. And to me, it's a vital part of reconnecting to our essence as humans, because our lineage, our traditions, our rituals, as well as the resilience and strength embodied by those who came before us, I believe that that shows us our humanity. If you think about the rituals and the foods and the ways that we've worked with our resources, with the earth, with one another, that is our humanity. And I believe that colonization and capitalism wants to wipe that out. It wants to dominate over what makes us human. And so I think when we reconnect to our ancestors, we reconnect to the parts of us that make us human. And so I'm curious, I'll talk about this a little bit and then we'll go into the sharing because I just want to get this part done so that I can hear from you all. So our ancestral medicine, ancestors are both our lineage, right? Like where we come from, the bloodlines, the DNA, both the resilience and the trauma, the blueprint and the imprint that's been passed down through epigenetics, right? Our lineage. And they're also the keepers of our lineage. There are ancestors, benevolent ancestors that want to be medicine for our healing and our resilience. There are ancestors that want us to protect and continue our traditions. There are ancestors that know that we've had to assimilate for survival. And they also know that one day there can be a return. One day there can be a reclaiming of our ancestors' medicines. And these medicines can come in the form of many. I'm actually really curious what you all might sense already as ancestral medicine, especially if you have a practice of connecting with your ancestors. But for me, ancestral medicine has come in the form of being a witness for me in moments of celebration and or pain. If I'm feeling like I need connection, I need energetic support, I call in my ancestors if there's no physical humans around me, or if the physical humans around me did not have capacity to witness me in my celebration or my pain. They have also been a resource to help me create more capacity to meet intensity. Oftentimes, when I'm resourcing, somatic resourcing, I very often use my ancestors and call them in. They can also be a healing balm to a need that wasn't met in earlier developmental years. So sometimes when we work with our inner child, we might have something that comes up that was relating to needing an elder to meet that younger self, whether that's, as a baby or as a toddler or as an adult, a young adult, right? That maybe needing an elder that wasn't physically present, but can now be energetically present to meet that need. My ancestors have also come as a sacred reminder that I'm eternally loved. There are moments when, just this last week, actually, if I can share a short story on how I connected with my ancestors. I was feeling really lonely this week after like a really big expansion the last month. Now I'm like in like more of like a slower contracted state before another expansion. And I was just feeling really lonely, and I really needed a reminder that I was loved as I am. A lot of it was stories around like productivity, around, giving more and producing, not doing enough, not being enough. And that was creating a sense of loneliness, that I wasn't seen as I am, I wasn't loved as I am. And so I actually called in my ancestors. I called in ancestors that loved me as I am, that wanted my highest and best, that were here to support and guide me, to protect our lineage. And I felt my grandmother energy come in, and I felt actually like my whole maternal lineage come in. And even as I'm saying this, like the left side of my body starts tingling. The left side of our body represents our maternal lineage, and the right is our paternal lineage. And I just started to cry because I could really feel like their love for me on a somatic level. And even though I've had a lot of loss in the traditions and the rituals and practices that my ancestors practiced due to colonization, um, I started breaking down when I felt my body just a somatic memory of how we prayed to our ancestors. We would light incense and we would bow 3 to 4 times. I don't know if it's 3 to 4 times because I was never taught that, but I've seen it in movies, and my uncles and aunties that did practice our ancestral lineage in Malaysia, what they did. But my dad was always like, no, we don't do that because we're Christian. And so the somatic memory of how to revere and thank my ancestors just came online for me. And I was just crying because even though I was alone in my couch, I didn't feel lonely. So I just wanted to offer that as a resource, as how like ancestors can be medicine for us. It's also a connection to spirit in possibly pre-colonial ways, right? Our ancestors not just are living and are the ones that we know to have deceased, but like ancestors that came way, way beyond us. I think it's like if you go all the way up like 16 generations, it's almost like 1 million ancestors. So if you just think about that, like how there's like 1 million ancestors that had to procreate and come together so that you could exist. Just how much guidance and how much energetic support is behind you if we choose to invite it in, right? There are also guides when we're feeling lost, or if we just not necessarily lost, but whenever we want guidance, they come in the form of like symbols, like numbers, animals. I get spiders on my altar all the time, and I know that spiders are one way my ancestors tell me that they're with me. I get crows cawing all the time. Whenever I'm looking for affirmation, I will just hear like a crow cawing, and as well as protection. And anytime I start to feel unsafe, whether that's within myself or in relationship with other people, I call in my ancestors to protect me. So some of the ways that I'm just going to keep going. Please let me know in the chat if you need support, and there will be a sharing portion right after this. So some of the ways that I connect with my ancestors and some of the ways that I love to offer you is prayer and ritual. So one of my rituals is I would light a candle. I say, this is for my ancestors. And I just say a short prayer, like, thank you for loving me. Thank you for guiding me. May I be a vessel for the highest and best, the deepest, most resonating truth, the highest expression of love. And thank you for supporting me in being that vessel. Something short, something that comes from your heart, right? It doesn't have to be what I say. Meditation and visualization, which is what we'll do in a moment here. Altar making is a really fun way to connect to your ancestors. I believe that in many, many, many traditions, especially if you think of like the ofrendas that are created in the Mexican lineage. I think that's such a beautiful way to connect to our ancestors. You can also make altars with like plants and elements. Like you could go to a park and collect sticks and stones and leaves and flowers for an altar. Even if it's just somewhere outside, you could collect seashells. Anything can be an altar. And really the intention is as an offering to the ancestors. Letter writing is a really beautiful way to connect to our ancestors. You can write a letter as an ancestor and then channel them, or you can write a letter as an ancestor to your descendants, or you can write a letter to your ancestors asking for support and prayer. Practicing our traditions, right? What are the practices and traditions that are still alive or you want to reclaim as a way to connect to your ancestors. Making ancestral foods is one of my favorite ways to connect to my ancestors. I often will ask my ancestors to like work through me, like tell me like how much oyster sauce to use, how much soy sauce to use, like things like that. So because the recipes are all lost, right? I don't have the recipes, but they're in my bones, they're in my blood. What are some of the other ways that you might connect with your ancestors? I'm curious if you want to start thinking about them, and then you can share when it comes to the sharing portion. This is the last slide here, is that connecting with our ancestors can feel like a lot because sometimes within our lineage, there might be ancestors who had colonizing identities or colonizers, right? Ideologies as well. We don't need to subscribe to them. We don't need to work with them if we don't want to. We can set energetic boundaries and we can call in the ancestors that only have our highest and best interests for all of humanity and ourselves included to guide and protect us, right? So the ancestors that want to guide us to the most authentic, full versions of ourselves, not where we're oppressed, right? So acknowledging, not erasing our lineage, rather creating capacity so that we may be able to meet the systems that reside within us, the systems of oppression that are within us. Is that making sense? We always have agency and free will. Our ancestors, they're not like, my experience of working with ancestors is they're not like ghosts. They don't hang around and watch you. They're more like energetic. It's more like a linear thing rather than it's more of a channel thing rather than like they're all around you. It's more like I connect with my ancestors through connecting to my own self, because it's the idea that the ancestors are within us. They're in our bodies, right? Our DNA and our the epigenetics of our cells and our fascia. And so connecting to that that vibration, the frequency of ancestral support, rather than maybe choosing one specific ancestor, which can happen, which is possible. But ultimately, we are the ones who choose. We are the ones who make decisions for ourselves. We're the ones that, when we hear a guidance or when we receive a message, we are the ones that would choose whether or not we take action on that. Okay, I'd love to hear from you all. Do you have a relationship with your living and or deceased ancestors or beyond? If yes, what does it look like? If no, would you like to share more or anything else that's present for you right now, now that we've talked a little bit about ancestral connection? I'm going to stop my screen share and pause the recording. And so in this space of nature where you feel most at home, this place where you feel safe, I'd love to invite you to reach a hand out to either the left or right side of your body. Just follow what intuitively feels right for you, maybe both. Pick one or the other hand to reach out in this nature space. And we'll call forward an ancestor from your lineage that has the highest and best for all, ourselves, you and me included. You and me in terms of the collective, and you as the descendant. And this ancestor is a benevolent ancestor who wishes that the lessons, the teachings that you need to know in order to embody your highest self, your most authentic version of your humanity, to step forward. Perhaps just noticing as you call this ancestor forward, perhaps any other prayer that you might have, an invocation to call forward this ancestor, one to maybe guide you through finding your purpose, or an ancestor to protect you, an ancestor to help create resilience and meeting systems of oppression. And then perhaps noticing either on the left or right side, whichever one you chose, perhaps any shifts in the energy, or perhaps even a physical, or rather a body, a subtle body. It could be an energetic body, a tangible or intangible body that's here for you. And just for today, we're just getting to know the energetics of what an ancestor might feel like in our space. For me, I'm noticing a tingling all up and down my left arm. I can sense a maternal quality. I'm personally not interested in her name or what she did, but just her presence, her knowing, her guidance, her wisdom. And it can come in the form of words, in the form of visuals, in the form of an animal. Perhaps it's attuning to this ancestor that's here for you right now, if any. Perhaps making an offering, a prayer, a wish. And it's okay if it doesn't feel doable or accessible. Maybe just imagining that an ancestor is here without needing to know the details, without needing to make sense or judgments around what you're noticing or not noticing. maybe asking, what is the medicine that you're here to offer me? So you're welcome to stay in this attunement to this ancestral medicine, this energy. You're welcome to release them at any time. And for now, I'm just going to start the Reiki energy that's going to go to you and your ancestors as well, those who are open to receiving it. Mm. Okay, for those of you watching the recording, right when we started the meditation for meeting our ancestors, I had forgotten to start the recording. Um, so, right where we picked up with the recording was just invitation to consider a place in nature that you feel safe and where you can be yourself, where there's no need to perform, no need to um, assimilate or produce, but really just a place to be yourself and to notice like what are the elements in that space, what are the animals, the color of the sky, the temperature, um, and from there, um, imagining how you're interacting in this space. Are you walking around? Are you seated? Um, and then moving into calling in the ancestors. So I hope that that made sense when you hopped on at the when I started the recording again. So if you are curious about more of what I do, feel free to reach out to me via email. And I look forward to connecting with you if you feel called to learn more about what I do. Okay. Much love. Take care. This has been such a great series, and I look forward to more.